Do y'all want to hear from Miss Jeneene Blackman? She lived at the Bass Street neighborhood in Nashville, Tennessee. That neighborhood no longer exists because the highways were built right through where it used to be, but it was founded by Black Civil War veterans who lived there till the 1960s.
Beavers, and my grandfather was Jasper Beavers, and they lived in Bass Street community, and they were working folk. My grandfather went to Tuskegee University. I'm so proud of that. And he was a teacher's aide at Vanderbilt, but he actually taught the students, and he would teach us as well. He loved science. He would always have something up his sleeve, but a quiet man, but really, really smart. My grandmother was a pastry chef, and I got some of her skills. I actually made a pound cake, and everybody loved it. So I learned from her, sitting at her feet, listening to stories that she stirred. My grandmother was very quiet because she was very hurt by a lot of things that happened. And so she was a really sweet person. But they lived in Bass community. She worked at McClellan's, so she was there when the sittings happened. And sometimes she would come home and she was so sad, and I didn't understand it because that's not the grandmother I knew. She would come home and you could tell the weight of the world was on her. But when they came into the house, as little children, we were not privy to all that. We didn't know half the stuff was going on. We guys were living parallel lives. I would see the people in the cars and like, who are those people? But I don't know who they are. But we lived parallel lives. So in the Bass Street community, when people got to their communities, they helped each other. They would have great opportunities at the church to sing songs and hymns. We taught how to stand up straight, how to speak in public, how to dress well, and how to love community. So there's some traditions. Like one of my grandmother's traditions was cooking fish on Fridays.
Yes.
So she would cook fish
Amen.
on Fridays, and back then there was no such thing as filet. Quite didn't understand this fish. You have to be careful. Be careful, baby. Don't, watch the bones. And spaghetti and cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
And on Sundays was the time when families would come together in the Bass Street community until, I don't know, in modern day we have time to do these things, but there would be Sunday dinner.
Yeah.
And so we would have Sunday dinner, and they would cook all the traditions like turnip greens, macaroni and cheese, chicken, roast. She would mix it up because she was an excellent cook. My other grandmother was Elizabeth Sloss. I never met my great-grandfather, my grandfather, Samuel Sloss, who was a photographer. But she worked for the Jewish Community Center. So sometimes she would take me when she catered jobs. I would go and help her. So her house was on Sigler Street on the corner. It's not there anymore, but that's where she lived. And my grandmother, once they left the Bass Street community, when the highway came through and destroyed where they used to live, they moved to Caldwell Avenue. And in the spot where their house is now, it's a $1.4 million house. And PBS had me to come and talk about that. How do you feel about that? And so both of those homes are gone. My childhood home that I was living in when I was in Nashville is still there because a family person took that one. And then we moved to Nolensville, Tennessee, which is a whole nother story. Won't get into that right now because I keep you here all day long. So my mother became a nurse at Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt is intertwined. And so now I'm here with Dr. Sutton, Dr. Wyatt. And it's just funny how that works. I worked at Vanderbilt for 10 years in News Public Affairs, but Vanderbilt's been a big part of our family life. So the community that I grew up in was amazing. There were doctors, lawyers, there were hospitals, and the community was tight-knit, just like Bass Street community that my grandparents are descended of. It was very, very close. And so if we don't do anything else in America, we need to get back to some of those basic principles of community.
Amen.
Because the way we had those meals, you shared those meals, the storytelling, and how many of y'all had to turn that ice cream thing? Do y'all remember that? When my grandmother made that custard, you had to turn the ice cream, and you were a lucky kid to get the ice cream thing afterwards, or the bowl after she finished the cake. But both grandparents were really good at that. So that's a little of my oral history. So you guys know a little bit about me, but there's so much more. But again, I don't want to keep you all day. Oral history is so important. Why it's important to preserve history? On this picture right here, this is actually October the 23rd, 2021. And something great was happening in Franklin at the same time. Did anybody know what happened on October the 23rd, 2021 in Franklin, Tennessee in the square?
USCT statue.
Who said that? In the back, you're right. So I had to make a big decision. I had to make a huge decision, actually, because being a child in Williamson County, I really wanted to see that because I couldn't believe it. Because that wasn't downtown Franklin, I remember. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So I was invited to this event, and I was super excited about this because when When I first got to the fort, it was very heavy. Like, have you ever been to a land and you just felt like, wow, this is just dragging me down? But once we started telling the stories and oral history, the land started to heal. It literally started to heal. When I first walked up on the fort, I was like, oh my God, I felt like crying, weeping, weeping, weeping. And now I feel happy. I feel like there's too many people around me, but I still feel happy. So on this day, my friend Fatia, and as we said, the reporter, he's always around. He always captures the stories. And we need that too, you guys.
Yes.
We need people in media, people who are in high places to actually help us tell the story.
Yes.
And so he's always around. He said, Jeneene, you feel like seeing a few words? Oh, always. I'm always ready. And so the pastor, and I love this guy, Brother Scruggs and his mentor, and we're all out there talking about the fort. On this day, it was very emotional for us all because we called the names of the people who lived there before. My friend Fatia called the names, and we honored their memory and their time there. And Mr. Mentor said, you know what? My house could still be there. There's nothing on that land. So I'm like, yeah, that's true. But we're going to remember the day, we're going to honor them, and we're going to remember all the good times that we had on that property. So that was a really, really special day. And then I felt like that land was helped as well. And since then, we still continue to find out more and more about those stories that weren't told. Because in my book as a child, it didn't tell these kind of stories about my history.
Nope.
Everything I had to do had to be oral history. And I had to be a person who was brave enough and strong enough to be able to stand and tell the stories, which is not often the case. It's very hard, including my grandmother, who I had to literally drag information out of to find out things and stories like that. I was close to her. My grandfather died in the 70s. I got a little bit of history from him, but for the most part, I'm always asking questions. So how am I doing, Tom? Okay, good. Okay. So on this day, that's how we began. Dr. Wyatt, Dr. Angela, and the students. The students' eyes, it's something about actually seeing the people who live there, holding the object, and you're digging in the dirt as a young person going, why am I doing this? And then it clicked. You could actually see it when the light came on. The light was so bright in their head, it's like almost little beams at the top of their head. Because African Americans generally don't go into that profession. We're always asked, well, go be doctors, go be lawyers, those sort of things. But they actually, the light went off. And that was great. And I'm going to wrap up with this. How do we get started with preserving history? By partnering with people like we have today. But also, videotape your elders. They don't like it, but don't get permission. Just even if you have to sneak, kids are real good at that. Get your teenagers, sneak and video their history, because every single time I learn something new. In our families, we save our funeral programs, weddings, graduations. I found my grandmother's stash. All those things is how I found out everything about everything. Yeah. And so we also go to the graveyard. It's like, again, it's oral. It's not written anywhere. You have to investigate. Or you're fortunate enough to find a Dr. Angela Sutton who don't take no for an answer, and Dr. Wyatt who help you get even more information. And then you have to find who has a prized possession. In every African American family, there's a prized possession in the family. Who can guess what it is? It sits in the living room. It's on a coffee table or a special table. It's really thick and it has things falling out of it.
The Bible.
Got it.
Yep.
It's the Bible. It's the prized possession. Our cousin has our family Bible, and I really need to talk to her about, could you pass it on to me so I can figure out who I can pass it on? But every chance I get that Bible, it takes hours to go through. I learned that my grandmother was not a sibling of 11 or 12. It was actually much more than that, and then the time they were born, the time they died, who married who, that sort of thing. So that's a prized possession. So if you talk to an elderly person, ask them about the Bible, the family Bible. If they don't remember, the ancestors before them might have written down the things that you would need to know. And again, the graveyard, like Round Hill in Linville, is where we go sometimes. Most importantly, and this is coming from my heart, all of it has, generally, because what am I? Loving kindness. Spend time with your children and your grandchildren, your church, wherever you go. Create gatherings where people can talk about history. It's not a bad idea. You might even have an object in your house that you can communicate around. You can pick up that object and you can hand it. Like my grandmother literally had this bowl I have now. Every time I look at it, it brings happy space, where she would mix those cakes. My grandmother, Elizabeth, I was at the house yesterday taking care of some things from my family home, my parents' home, and my grandmother's hat, Elizabeth, she dressed really nice. And all my family with gloves and a special hat. And so I looked at the hat, and I can tell my granddaughter a story about the hat. When we're making a cake, I pull out that bowl, and I can stir that cake just like that with my grandmother, and do that with my granddaughter. Her name is Nyla, the hat cake on me. So, you're loving kindness. I see you are too. So let's bake this cake. So you can pull out things and talk to them about it and keep the history going. It's not my history, it's our history. And it's important that we continue to tell the stories. Stories are everything. And also, if you can walk alongside someone who doesn't look like you to help them to get their story told, do that as well. Because like I said, Kwame had tried this for many years before and nothing happened. I sometimes get ridiculed, in all honesty, for walking with Dr. Angela and Dr. Wyatt. But I also have Dr. Williams, and I have Dr. Wynn, who are African Americans. I have a whole village. It takes a village. But in order to get this work done, I'm going to take whoever will come with me and hold my hand and help me tell the stories of my ancestors. It's so important.
Amen.
It is beyond important because my community has disappeared in South Nashville. Gone. Regentification has taken it all. My organization is trying now to save, I can't say save, but try to influence preservation in North Nashville. And we're not always welcome to have those conversations. But the time is now. Franklin, we won't get started on that. There's some places here we need to save. So it's important that we save history, we remember history, and understand history is healing. It really does heal everyone. On a brighter note, so I don't leave y'all like it's all bad, but Fort Negley, there's a plan right now to save Fort Negley forever. It's a beautiful plan. If you have a chance, call the master plan, go online, check it out. And we're super excited about that. And then we will continue to be at Bass Street. Richie, one of the contractors who's working on the plan for Fort Negley, made sure that there's going to be, for a lifetime, education going on there. And so we're super excited about the future. And I'm so happy that you guys give me the opportunity to share this time with you. And I enjoy this moment of my life. I cannot believe I'm in downtown Franklin talking about history.